I struggle with that because I'm that way too. I'm like all in or not. And I like the exact number of cookies that I can't eat is 1, right? Like I can eat 0 or I can eat 5,000.
Uh-huh.
But I had this conversation. We had James Clear on as a guest at the Society of Advice thing, and I used it as a personal therapy session, and we talked specifically about incremental versus big all-in goals, and it's really interesting how often we have like flare out and burnout, and when we do these big things, like what really, and I'm finding this to be true, is like just setting up, like, Atomic Habits is a magic book. Like I was like, really seriously, another habits book. And it's actually, yeah, it's, and one of the things I think is amazing is just like sort of setting up the world, the people you hang out with, your systems, everything around you to optimize for the thing that you're trying to do now. So let's just return to like, I want to rebuild my family, because that seems to be coming up in emails I'm getting. Like, I want to have better relationships at home. I want to have enough, my health, like any of those things. The dilemma with that is the world doesn't care. There's no list. There's no billboard. There's no 40 under 40. Nobody cares. I mean, Lance Armstrong said that in his book after the divorce. He was like, look, at work, everybody cared. Like, Lance has got a whole bunch of other problems, whatever, but like the example still holds. And so somehow we have to get down to this thing that we talked about earlier. Like, what does it mean to have enough? What really brings happiness? And so if you can figure out a way to measure that and make it like a big thing, right? Like, I'm going to take these number of days off, or I'm going to that volunteer hour thing is awesome, right? Like, yeah. Could you do that? I don't think it works really well with teenagers if they know, but they don't have to know, right? Like,
number of hours I spent with my teenager without my teenager realizing I'm trying to maximize the number of hours I'm spending with him or her.
Yeah, that I'm tracking it. Like, I have reminders to check in with my kids, especially when they're living away. Like, I have a reminder. That seems like, really, you have to have a reminder. Yeah, I care that much that I built a system. So yeah, I think, but that's the way I would do it, is like, but yeah, where are you going to set that goal? Yeah. Marathon, jujitsu, whatever. Like, maybe that is like, okay, well, go do a small experiment before you go all in. Once you figure out where it is, you're sort of experiment, you're being less wrong. Once you figure it out where it is, then like, okay, great. My advisor friend, goal-based advisor, dive in. But my point really is like, A, don't feel like you're alone. B, you can do it, right? Like, and I think, like, C, like, if we could just get a little more quiet and understand, like, what's the point in the first place? You know, like, we know for sure that none of this stuff is going to bring the happiness that we thought. It's so cliche at this point, but I literally yesterday had a conversation with a friend. She is now, when we first started talking, she was making something like $500,000 a year. It was $500,000 in revenue. It's not an advisor. Close, but not an advisor. $500,000 in revenue. And she was telling me about all the stress and the problems and the things and the arguments and the, trouble with $500,000 in revenue. She's now making $8 million in revenue. And it was 3 years. We literally had the exact verbatim conversation
about all of her stresses and unhappiness.
All the things. And like, this time it was the private airport staff, like whatever. But I was like, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Greetings, Carl here. Thanks so much for watching that little clip. That was a clip of my podcast with Michael Kitces that we call Kitces and Carl. Now, one of the things I care deeply about that we get to touch on in that podcast is doing work that matters, right? The work you do matters. And if that's something that resonates with you, you would love what we're building at the Society of Advice. There's a whole group of people that get together once a month to talk about doing work that matters. And we would love to have you. To find out more, just click on the link below.